Competition fills the air as you and your fellow suitors race to have your letters of love delivered to the princess, who is currently seeking an ideal partner and confidant for when she assumes the throne. Using allies, friends, and family of the heir princess, will you be able to get your letter to her first? How's it going, everyone? My name is Ricardo, this is What the Heck Is, and today we're talking about Love Letter. We're going to be doing a brief overview and tutorial. Now, Love Letter is a card game introduced in May 2012, designed by Seiji Kanai, that from 2012 to 2014 won multiple awards, and has received tons of variations focused on different themes and IPs, ranging all the way from Batman to Adventure Time. So there's tons of different versions of this game out there. However, a second edition of Love Letter was released in 2019, including new artwork, as well as 5 new cards, and the ability to support from 2 to 6 players, up from the classic Love Letter 2 to 4. Love Letter comes in a beautiful and high-quality cloth bag that contains 21 character cards, 6 reference cards, and 13 favor tokens. These 21 character cards are comprised of different people in the prince's life that we'll kind of elaborate on a little later. Love Letter is a very easy to play game with tons of depth once you get into it that plays 2 to 6 suitors of ages 10 and up, and usually takes about 10 to 20 minutes. Also, thankfully, unlike the normal rules of Love and War, Love Letter setup is very straightforward and pretty easy to execute. First, we give each player a reference card, and whatever reference cards aren't being used can be set aside. Then, we shuffle the 21 character cards to create a draw deck. We place the deck face down within reach of all players, along with 13 favor tokens. After the deck is made, remove the top card and set it aside face down without anyone looking at it. This card will remain outside of play. And if you're playing a 2-player game, then take another 3 cards off the top of the deck and set those aside as well. However, these cards will be set aside face up. Once the deck is set up, deal each player 1 card from the deck to be their starting hand. When it comes to deciding who goes first, the game suggests whoever most recently handwrote a letter should take the first turn. But this can be decided however you see fit. Getting into actually how you play Love Letter is played in a series of rounds where one player will end up successfully delivering their letter to the princess, gaining a favor token. A player can win a round via 2 different ways. 1. A player wins if every other player has been eliminated. 2. A player wins if they have the highest value card at the end of the round. The number of favor tokens needed to win varies on the number of players in the game. Players' turns are resolved in clockwise order. Players start with 1 card in hand from setup, and on their turn they draw 1 card from the deck. They then choose which card they wish to play, resolving the played card's effect. All played cards remain in the play area and must always be visible to all players. This also goes for any cards that are discarded. When it comes to the cards in your hand, they should always be kept secret unless stated otherwise by the game. Players then continue to take turns until the round ends. You know the round has ended when the deck has run out and there are no more cards to draw, or when there's only 1 player left in the round and everyone else has been eliminated. If after any turn the deck is empty, all remaining players must reveal and compare hands. The player who possesses the highest valued card wins the round. In the case of a tie, all tied players successfully had their love letter delivered and gain a favor token. In the case that there is ever only 1 player left, via all other players being eliminated by card effects, then the round immediately ends and the last remaining player gains a favor token. When starting a new round, just repeat steps 2 through 4 of setup, and the player who won the previous round goes first. If there was a tie, then randomly select someone to start among the tied players. This cycle continues until a player meets the favor token requirement to win. Now that we're more familiar with how the game works, we can start talking about character cards and their effects. There are a total of 21 character cards that make up the deck, but there's only 10 different characters overall, as the deck shares multiple copies of some characters. Character cards have 5 central parts: their name, their value, their play or discard effect, the number of copies of the card in the deck, and their character portrait. Let's tackle the characters in order of their card value, and cover each one individually. The spy has no effect when discarded or played. However, if at the end of the round you were the only player still in the round who played or discarded a spy, you gain 1 favor token. This token is gained even if you lose the round overall, and if you won the round, then you still gain a token from winning the round in addition to gaining 1 by being the only player who played a spy and was not eliminated. The spy really allows you to get a leg up on the competition if you happen to be the only one playing and discarding spies. But do note you do have to be uneliminated at the end of the round to get the bonus. So while it is pretty high reward, there is also some risk of you never getting those points at all. The guard has a value of 1, and 6 copies of this card exist in the deck. When you play a guard, you choose another player and name a character other than guard. If the chosen player possesses the card that you named, then they are eliminated from the round. This effect and the game in general kind of work on the honesty policy, so try your best to be honest and straightforward with each other, and violations of it can be kind of handled between the group. The guard really puts your guessing game to the test. There's been a lot of times where I've been playing and someone has played a guard and just randomly guessed a card in their opponent's hand and been correct, and now that player's out from the very beginning of the game. So if you're feeling lucky, this may be the card for you. The priest has a value of 2, and there are 2 copies of this card in the deck. When you play the priest, you choose another player and you secretly look at their hand without revealing it to anyone else. The priest gets you good hard information by letting you see someone's hand. However, there's nothing that says that they won't change what card they have in their hand by the time it gets back to your turn. They can just play the card that you saw, or maybe trade it to somebody else. There's a lot of things that happen in this game to where the information you get with the priest may not be true for a very long time. Next up, we have the Baron, with a value of 3, and again, 2 copies of this card exist in the deck. Whenever you play a Baron, you choose another player. Then you and that player secretly compare hands. Whoever has the lower valued card in their hand is eliminated for the rest of the round. If there's a tie, then neither player is eliminated. The Baron really is a powerhouse of a card if you have another high card to pair with it. However, do note that the eliminated player's card is revealed because it's discarded. So if they had a very high card, that can mean that you really narrowed down the field for everybody else to guess what card you had. The Handmaid has a value of 4, and also there are 2 copies of this card in the deck. When you play the Handmaid, other players cannot choose you to be the target of their card effects until the start of your next turn. The Handmaid has a very powerful effect, buying you a whole set of turns until it gets back to you. Players can't target you, so they have to target each other, and so if you think you like your hand and you have a high card, this can stall enough for you in order to win via that way, or it can just cause other players to eliminate themselves or each other, putting you in a better scenario overall. If there's ever a scenario where all other players besides you are protected by the Handmaid, when you play a card, if the effect of the card requires you to target another player, like an example the guard, then the card is played with no effect. But if the card requires you to choose any player, then you must choose yourself for the effect, an example being the Prince. Speaking of the Prince has a value of 5, and there are 2 copies of the Prince in the deck. Whenever you play the Prince, you choose any player, including yourself, and the chosen player discards their hand and draws a new hand. The discarded cards do not have their effects resolved, except for the Princess. If you are ever forced to discard the Princess via the effect of a Prince, then you are eliminated from the round. If the deck is empty when a player is forced to discard and draw a card, then they draw the face-down set-aside card from the beginning of setup. The Prince is one of my favorite cards because it allows you to make kind of funny hand reads. You can cause a player that you think has a high card to discard the high card and then draw a new one. It is especially good if you cause them to discard the Princess because then they automatically lose. I also like the flexibility of it that if you don't like your hand, you can play the Prince on yourself and you can just draw an entirely new hand. Now the Chancellor has a value of 6, and there are also 2 copies of this card in the deck. Whenever you play the Chancellor, you draw cards from the deck and into your hand. Then you choose one of the 3 cards in your hand to actually keep. After you have chosen a card to keep, you then place the other 2 cards face down on the bottom of the deck in any order. If there's only 1 card in the deck, then you draw it and return 1 card, and if there's no cards in the deck, then this card has no effect at all. The Chancellor is an amazing card when it comes to possessing information. Not only do you get to see an extra 2 cards, more than everybody else, but you also know exactly where those cards are because you place them back in the bottom of the deck in whatever order you choose. So if the game gets really drawn out and you get to the point where there's only 2 cards left in the deck, you pretty much have like almost perfect information at that point. The King has a value of 7, and there's only 1 copy of the King in the whole deck. Whenever you play the King, you just choose another player and trade hands with them. The King is a very tricky card in the deck. It has one of the highest values, but there's also 1 copy of it, and it's 1 use. All you do is you play it and you take someone else's hand, but it is very strong if you happen to think that they have the other highest card, or a card higher than the King. You can steal someone's Princess, or someone's Countess. Heck, you may even be able to steal something like a guard, and then you know what's in their hand, and you can use the guard in order to beat them. The Countess has a value of 8, and again, this card there is only 1 copy of in the deck. The Countess has no effect when played or discarded. However, there is a requirement that you must play the Countess as the card for your turn if you also possess a king or a prince as the other card in your hand. You can still choose to play the Countess as the card for your turn even if you do not possess a prince or a king as the other card in your hand. And you do not have to reveal what the other card in your hand was when you play the Countess, nor inform players if you were forced to play the card or merely chose to play it. The Countess effect does not apply whenever you draw cards from other effects, i.e. the Chancellor. The Countess is just big. It is a high value card, the second highest value card in the deck, with kind of a strict condition for you to be able to keep it. But it's very good if all the kings and all the princes are out, as long as you get rid of the princess too. Now lastly we have the Princess. Value 9, one copy of it in the deck. The Princess has a very simple but strong effect, being that if you play or discard the Princess for any reason whatsoever, you are immediately out of the round. This card can obviously win you the game because it's the highest value card. You don't have to worry about anybody else beating you out when it comes to value, but you have to be very careful with it. If a lot of people catch wind of the fact that you have a princess on you, or you might have a princess on you, the game can go very south for you very quickly. That's it for the character cards, and now you're pretty much just ready to play. There's also this really cool option of playing the classic version of Love Letter by removing the following cards: 1 guard, 2 chancellors, and 2 spies. This can be seen by the yellow circles on the character cards themselves when it comes to listing how many copies of them there are in the deck. Anything that has a yellow circle means that it can be removed, or should be removed, if you choose to play the classic version of this game. Besides that, there are no other rule changes when playing the classic version of Love Letter. Also note that the classic version of Love Letter only goes up to 4 suitors. Well, we now know what the heck Love Letter is. Let me know what you thought, and if you're now planning on playing the game, or what your experiences with this game have been. If you want me to find out what the heck something in particular is, just say so in the comments and I'll see what I can do. As always, thanks for watching, take care of yourself, and see you in the next one. Peace out.